everyone, my name is Zach REDRUP. This is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and on this episode I'm joined by Volatile Ways bassist Lewy Glass. We discussed the band's brand new debut album, Perfect Dark, how Volatile Ways formed, drawing inspiration from the Dark Souls video games, pop culture samples in their songs, running his own record label, and loads more. Just before we get into all of that, if you can take a few seconds of your time to support the podcast, I would really appreciate it. You can hit subscribe or follow wherever you're checking this out, and that way you also don't miss out on any future episodes. You can leave a review or a comment. You can follow the podcast on social media, and there's also a Patreon and a web store if you did want to go one step further. I've shoved links to everything that I've mentioned in the description of this episode, or you can head to itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now, here's my chat with Lewy Glass of Volatile Ways. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the It's Not a Phase podcast, where I'm joined by Lewy of Volatile Ways. How you doing, man?
Good, Zach. How you doing today?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Yeah, like we were just saying, it's first thing in the morning for me, late at night for you, but that's time zones for you. So, yeah, glad to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm keen to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. So, the big news for you guys is obviously debut album, Perfect Dark. That came out not too long ago now, via Bereave Records, aka Big Records, which is your label. And yeah, how do you feel about having this, this collection of songs finally out there for people to listen to and enjoy?
It's been insane. It's such a long time coming for us. So we've always, since we've been a band, starting late 2019, we've put out some form of music, whether it's been a single, an EP, a two-track promo, something like that every year since we've been a band. So we always write, we're always doing stuff behind the scenes. But these songs I started writing late 2021.
Wow, okay.
And I had pre-production done in 2022. And when we announced it on Wednesday, Chaz from Justice for the Damned, who did session drums on the record, he posted a photo from his session and he finished tracking the drums in February 2023. So
Wow.
it's been a really long time coming. So in that time, even though we have put out, the Pink Mist single and then a couple of singles for the album rollout, the whole thing as an entire sort of entity has been ready for a long time. So putting it out there has just been almost surreal. And we were all so excited to finally get it out there and see what people think, because the singles got a great reception.
Yeah.
But the album's really written to be listened to front to back. All the songs kind of link into each other and transition and all that sort of stuff. So listening to it as a full body of work, I was really excited for people to hear it like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
why was it such a long drawn out thing? Was there any specific reason, or is it just life? It's just happening all that time. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the way that we did it, we were working on certain aspects of it. I guess with the pre-production, that was just me. So I handled all the instrumental writing and that side of things. And then with pre-production, we use Elliot Galla at this Chameleon Studios. So he works with Speed. He's done Us and Honest Crooks and Cursed Earth, and he does tons of heavy and hardcore bands in Australia, and we think he's the best. So we work closely with him, and then we actually Brock and Jonah, our guitarist and drummer, joined the band in 2022.
Right.
So we'd already had the pre-production done before they actually joined the band, and when we were working out how we wanted to go about actually recording everything, that's why we went with Chaz from Justice for the Damned to do the session work, because we were like, if we can just get someone who records all the time and is locked in, and we can make that happen. So we had to make sure it aligned with his schedule. And then Brock actually tracked the guitars, so it was cool to have him involved on the recording process, because I'm tight enough to write and pre-pro, but I'm definitely not tight enough to to lay it down as the final recording.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of organizing that stuff, and then aligning that with Elliot, who's quite busy. And then with vocals, um, we just had to sort of do, you could sort of do like a song, a session kind of thing vocally, but then, it's such a uh, involved process of, repeating lines and tracking lines and layers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That when Emily would do it, we'd normally do one day. You could only do one day a week, unless we blocked out a couple of week period to be in the studio the whole time. So, we might have done a session and then not gone back for 6 weeks and then done another
Right.
vocal session, or just whenever we could squeeze a day in with our schedules and Elliot as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just things like that. And then artwork and music videos and all that sort of stuff, touring, just working out, when we could get it all finalized, finished. And then we also did some label sort of shopping around and things like that too, just ourselves at the time, trying to see if there was anyone that we could get to help release it or anything like that. And then the idea came. I mean, I've always put out all my band's music, so I was like, why don't I put a name to it? I decided to self-release it, but then I was like, why don't I put a name to it and actually
Yeah.
make a label? And then so we had all the organization with vinyls and pressing and pre-orders and CDs and all sorts of stuff as well. So yeah, I guess if you asked anyone, I suppose, when they started writing songs to when they put them out, like it would be normally a long process. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's when you think about it and actually look back, it's like, wow, that was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's your debut album, isn't it? You want to make sure it's right. Like you don't want to rush it just for the sake of saying, "Oh, we've got an album out now." You want it to sound good and
yeah,
put the right songs on there. And there's lots of moving parts. Not only that, like it's not cheap to record an album and get
yeah,
all the artwork and all that kind of stuff as well. So I guess that probably played a part in it as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about really the cost side of things, but that's definitely, yeah, a big part of it. A band at our size, if we're um, making any money on touring and stuff, then that's a bonus. You know what I mean? So yeah, we needed to be tactical about what shows we're playing and what merch we have and how we're sort of organizing the band funding and all that sort of stuff because I can't provide us our own label advancing or anything like
Yeah.
that when it's just us putting it out anyway. So yeah, but it's gone unreal. The pre-orders more than I could have expected and it's
Yeah.
covered everything and yeah, just so pleased with the response so far. It's been awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people listening who don't quite understand like the benefit and importance of pre-orders, like you say, it kind of helps to finance it in advance. Like you don't have to, dig into your pocket too much in advance if the money's there from people. Like, and you can also gauge the support to know like this is how much merch we need to print and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting. And it sounds funny, but I mean, I personally don't pre-order a lot of stuff. So when
Right.
other people do, it like it's like a really nice feeling. You know what I mean? It's wholesome and it feels good. That people care enough about it that they want to buy it a few months in advance, essentially.
Yeah, well,
Before
we've
it.
been hearing it, so they don't know exactly what they're buying, but they
Yeah,
trust in what they've heard so far. So yeah.
yeah, which is crazy. It's an awesome feeling. And in the end, I'm actually like, don't get me wrong, like we were trying to look for labels to put it out, but
Yeah.
the feeling that we've got from seeing it all like behind the scenes and yeah, even when you just see an order come through, you know what I mean? And it's like, yes, like another
Yeah.
one, cool, awesome. All
Yeah.
right, people are jumping onto it. So it's been it's been a really nice sort of process, and I'm glad that we handled it that way.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet. But yeah, I guess with a debut album, that's always going to bring new listeners, new eyes, and attention to the band from people who may not have heard of you prior to that. Um,
Yep.
so, being a relatively new band, because this is your debut album, would you mind just briefly explaining how Volatile Whales came to be? Sorry, Volatile
Yeah,
Ways,
yeah,
is it?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I played in a band called Honest Crooks, and we just sort of hit like a 10-year mark late last year. And I never really wrote a lot for that project. It was mostly
Right.
Callum, our guitarist, would write, 95% of the music, and then we'd all chip in and have our ideas and things like that. And I actually had a couple of songs that I'd written. So now it'd probably be 7 years ago or something, quite a long time ago.
Mm.
And, the boys weren't really vibing them and that kind of thing. And I was like, I like them, so I'll keep them for something in the future. And I never did anything with them. I just had them there in the bank, so to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And Emily, the vocalist, and I have been dating now for 6 years. So she used to come to Honest Cook shows and do merch for us and things like that. And she would get up and do like a guest vocal part or
Right.
a
Okay.
feature or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it was always really fun. She had like a cool sort of aggressive sounding voice, and people would, whenever she'd get off stage, people were always like, "You need to start a band. Like, you need to start a band. Just look cool, sounds cool, like whatever." It's like, oh, maybe one day, I don't know. And people would come up to me and be like, "You need to start a band," and like, maybe one day I'll do something for it, whatever. And then
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the catalyst was for it, but I think she'd been doing it a bit more and had expressed, the idea to me that she wanted to do a band, and she had the name Volatile in mind. She really liked that and things like that. And then in my head, I was like, it'd be a pretty cool surprise to record these songs and then give them to her as a gift, as
Right.
like a surprise, and actually start a band for her.
That's an original gift
And
for between partners. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Here's a band.
so yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really funny talking about it, but it was pretty organic when it all happened. So yeah, I looked it up, and there was, of course, old metal bands and whatever, like already had the name Volatile, and I thought Volatile Ways sounds like a cool name when I was trying to think of something similar. And most people would abbreviate it to Volatile anyway, like,
Right.
everyone does that with other bands and projects. So I got together with Jesse, who was the original drummer of Honest Crooks. He used to do some recording at his house, and tracked Plead and uh, To Death, I think, were the two first songs we put out on like a promo tape.
Right.
And Natural Selection, believe it or not, was actually the first one that I'd written for Honest Crooks. So
Okay.
those three songs were like the skeleton tracks, so to say, that I had for Crooks that turned into the first few Volatile Ways songs. So I did that, and I talked to a couple of friends and was like, if I start this band and pay for everything and write all the music and do all this stuff, and you guys just play with us live, would you be keen to do it? And they were like, yeah, yeah, let's do it. So I organized it all. I made the social media accounts, and I had a designer friend to like get some photos of us. There was photos of her when she was singing with us live, like Honest Crooks live.
Right.
And then the other guys played in other bands too. So I got him to put together like a little collage photo with live photos of us all, so it looked like it was an actual band. And I made a logo and did all
Wow.
that stuff. And then yeah, it was I think I gave it to her early. I think it was like a week before Christmas. I surprised her with it and was like, all right, I've started your band. I already had the songs recorded. And then the next day, like, we went in and recorded some vocals with Jesse, and we had a song out a week later.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
pretty crazy. Like,
usually people get like, oh, I don't know, jewelry or flowers or chocolate or whatever, but you get a full scale band, promo photos and everything else. So yeah, fair enough, dude.
yeah, it was funny. I don't know. I've always, I mean, I've never done anything like that, of course. I've always tried to, be original with gifts, and I like to think
Yeah.
that something that's thoughtful is. Uh, I like receiving something thoughtful compared to something that's just a physical item that's been bought or something like that. But yeah, this one was definitely unique, but it was just a fun idea to be a little creative project for Emily, and we never expected it to turn into a fully fledged sort of touring act that is putting out vinyl records and getting interest from people all over the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So when did it transition from that into like a band? Because I guess there was also ironic poor timing of 2019, and then we go into 2020 and COVID happened, so you can't even be a touring band anyway if you wanted to. So yeah, when did that
Yeah.
transition happen?
Yeah. I was only talking to someone about this the other day, and it was funny. Our first show that we played was, it was like mid-February 2020. So it was like 2 weeks
Right.
later,
Okay.
everything in Australia shut down. So we got to play one show and then everything shut down. And I think it might have even been, I don't even know if we'd put anything out. I think we'd only put out Plead, and that was like a minute long.
Right.
We hadn't released the 2-track tape or anything yet. So it had like an interesting sort of roll on effect. So I think we ended up putting the tape out like pretty soon into COVID. And then we all lived in Newcastle. So uh, there was no border lockdowns or anything that was preventing us from working on stuff. So I
Right.
was working on new music from the jump, and then we were able to have this time to go in and record new music in the studio. And I didn't have a lot of time to do anything else. So I was just writing, and playing around with things like that. So we actually had a lot of time to sort of work out what we wanted to do stylistically and aesthetically, and not have to worry too much about shows and that sort of thing. And then it gave us time to sort of lock in and get tight. And then when we came back, because there was a couple of periods in Australia where lockdowns stopped, for a month or something, and then they came back
Yeah.
for 6 months or whatever it was. So some people were advantageous and would put on a show, in that small period. And
Yeah.
we
Make the
got to
most of
play a
it.
couple of shows. Yeah, we got to play a
Yeah.
couple of shows in between, in between, I guess, 2020 and late 2021, if my memory serves me correctly. So, um, yeah, kind of, we made the most of the extra time that we had, I suppose you could say. And then in that, it allowed us to sort of build a little bit of a following, and we come back and we have a full set of songs essentially that people know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you kind of
Yeah.
you took advantage of the kind of the cards that were dealt. Like instead of kind of just sitting there and waiting for something to happen, like you actually just took the time. Like, oh well, we can't play shows. Let's just work on songs and what is this band like? How do we want to present the band when we can finally kind of get the wheels turning once again?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it probably helped that the other people were stuck inside too, because they're all just scrolling their phones or whatever. So they're all seeing it. They can't do much else. So they're looking and discovering new bands
Yeah,
and things like that too. So I'm sure there was some additional benefit to that as well.
yeah, yeah.
Silver lining, I'd say.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? Like we're 5 years after like the lockdowns and stuff, and we're still kind of talking about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I think everyone had to deal with it. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
it killed a lot of bands. You know what I mean? And it affected a lot of others, and it affected a lot of releases. And we had lots of friends that definitely got hurt, for lack of a better term, by the inability to tour off the back of a record or a release, or just that becomes their career. They've taken the step into fully fledged touring, and then the world shuts down, and it's like, well, now what do we do? So
yeah,
yeah, I guess feel grateful that we were able to use as much of it as we could to our advantage, I suppose.
yeah, yeah. Well, if we go back to the album, so you look at the cover art where you got this knight who's like there's like a glowing sacred heart, and then there's these swords kind of going into it. Um, can you kind of talk to me more about the artwork, like what that represents, why you went with that?
Yeah, for sure. So we had quite a few different ideas for the artwork over time, and didn't certain things didn't come together. And I had people working on artwork like a couple of years ago, went through all different artists and different themes and styles, and nothing was really working or translating, or we couldn't really nail down exactly what we wanted. And our friend Dave Aindow, who did the artwork for it. He'd done all sorts of this sort of 3D rendering and chrome sort of style design. And I always wanted to work with him on something. And Emily's pretty fascinated and loves, medieval and fantasy and different things like that. And we kind of settled on the idea of a knight. The knight is actually a woman. It's a bit hard to tell because the armor and the
Right.
artwork is so dark. But it's supposed to be, like a woman protagonist. Um, and it's like I've got the CD here if people
Yeah.
haven't seen it. So it's the knight and the seven swords, and she really likes the old sort of Renaissance style artworks of Mary and the Seven Sorrows, the Sacred Heart and the Seven Swords, and it tied into there being seven tracks on the
Right.
album. So the seven swords represents a song each, and we kind of just were running out of time as such, and had some ideas in mind, and then they all kind of came together and lined up really well. And then we wanted it to be obviously quite dark and gloomy and gritty, like the theme of the record is. And Dave just nailed it, when he came back to us. We worked pretty closely together uh, on revisions and things like that, but he really nailed it. So there's songs on there like God Will Be Cut, which is a Kill Bill reference.
Yeah.
Um, and getting the samurai sword specifically made. It's what I think Hattori Hanzo says. It says in Japanese, but it's in the subtitles that you can see God Will Be Cut.
Right.
So there's sword references there. The Invocation of Doom, is a Berserk inspired song, and has lots of sword related lyrics with a big call out at the end. Um, and then with Perfect Dark, the title track, just put out the video visualizer for. Emily actually had a sword in the
Yeah.
video as well. So we tried to sort of tie that in, because we don't do anything crazy like that live. We're not in like outfits or anything when we play. But I wanted her to be able to express herself in however she wanted to and however she saw fit, for the themes on the record, and she absolutely nailed it.
Yeah. So you're not going to come out on stage anytime soon carrying swords each or anything like that.
Not like a laughing
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, this is like the transition arc now that you've kind of, oh yeah, we're gonna get swords out now, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's been fun, man. It's been really cool to see her sort of have some fun with it and do what she's wanted to do with it for a long time. And it's
Yeah.
cool to be able to have, I guess, the freedom to do that as well. Like I said, without putting it out ourselves, and having a little bit of money come in from shows and the orders and all that sort of stuff too. It's allowed us to um, have some fun with it and really do what we want to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on the subject of the title track and obviously the name for the album, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but was that at all inspired by the N64 game?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So I I can't help but when I like the story with God Will Be Cut, when I was watching Kill Bill and I just saw that, I was like, oh, this might have been like 6 or 7 years ago. I just saw
Right.
that on the screen. I was like, that'd be a cool song name. So I wrote it down in my phone, like just in my notes. And like if I go back through there, there's all sorts of song titles or timestamps for samples for songs, when I've just been watching a movie or reading or doing whatever, and I'll just like write down an idea. That'll be cool for something in the future. And
Yeah.
Perfect Dark was always a name that I liked. Like when I did play the video game as a kid, so I'm 33, so N64 was pretty big
Yeah.
when I was like when I was young.
That was your childhood,
And
pretty much. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Ocarina of Time is still my favorite game ever. So
Yeah. It's like a classic, timeless classic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I just thought Perfect Dark was so cool, and in the yeah, as an adult, I'm looking back into it. I'd forgotten that the agent's name was Agent Dark and that sort of thing. But I just thought the name Perfect Dark was like an interesting concept of a name for death, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you go into nothingness after you die. That's the perfect dark. And I thought that that was a cool way to sort of frame it, and it sounds cool. And I don't know, I always just really liked it. And I think I just had it as a song title. I didn't think it
Right.
was going to be like a record name or anything.
Yeah.
And as time was getting closer and we were talking about different ideas, we were talking about it, and I was like, I mean, out of the song titles, because I do like having a title track. I think it's cool when bands do like just an album name and there's no title track.
Yeah.
But I do like having an actual track that has the same name as the title. So I was thinking back through it, and I actually did think that God Will Be Cut could be like a kind of hard album name as well.
Yeah, it
So
ties
we're
in with
just
the
trying
cover
to work
artwork as well,
out.
doesn't it, with the swords and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I was just trying to work out, what was best suited, and then yeah, as a concept, I think Perfect Dark just kind of all encapsulated the the theme. I mean, listening to the record, it's translated with quite a few people that it is quite a dark record. You know what I mean? And
mm,
it's got we've always delved heavily in if if you listen to even to Condemned to Life, Burdened to Death, it starts kind of aggressive songs in the first half and then goes to like the sadder emotional songs on the second half. And this record does the same thing, but it doesn't. Um, I guess it's kind of just unrelenting on the dark, consuming themes. So with that title, it makes perfect sense and kind of ties it all together.
yeah, yeah. And I think I don't know if it's like video games have influenced like your older work, but to me, that two-track EP, You Died, that reminds me of Resident Evil, the death screen. Is that as well?
So it's from like the Souls games, like or from
Oh
soft
yeah, they do
games.
that as
So
well, don't they? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and Bloodborne and things like that. So Emily is hugely, fascinated by and loves those games so much.
Yeah.
And Goddess of Rot, the uh, single of that was inspired by Millennium from Elden Ring. And
Yeah.
that's her like Goddess of Rot is her is like Millennia Goddess of Rot in the
Yeah.
game. And she wanted to write a song about that, and I was like, yeah, let's do it because we collaborate together on lyrics. So I write a lot of lyrics, she writes a lot of lyrics, and um, yeah, she wanted to just have some fun with it and make a song about that, and it resonated quite well with people because I mean, Elden Ring was pretty popular at the time as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it wasn't like the intention of like writing a song that was about a current thing that was popping off or anything, but it was just like a cool inspiration, and that definitely was part of it. And then Shove It Into a Bag was just we just wanted to write it like a short, hard song.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it's got the video that we just filmed ourselves with our phones, in a park next to our house.
Yeah.
Um, it's about like brutally killing someone. And then I was like, what if we just called it You Died? Because I always love when you see it come up on the screen and it's just like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
brutal. And it's almost camp, you know what I mean? Like calling it, a heavy record You Died. It's like kind of
Yeah.
silly, but it was fun. We only made some tapes and stuff for it. We didn't do anything crazy, but
Yeah.
the songs go great live. They're kind of no frills, just simplified, um, just straight up sort of mosh tracks. So
Yeah.
that was fun. But yeah, that's definitely inspired Emily quite a bit. With themes and stuff in the past for sure.
Yeah, yeah, like I say, it reminded me of like when you die in Resident Evil, that's what it does in like the older games. But yeah, I didn't make the connection there of like Elden Ring or the Dark Soul games and stuff. But I guess that makes more sense because that also ties into the kind of medieval things that you were saying earlier. Like, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. it's been cool seeing the that all sort of shine through a bit more. And I guess because people resonating with that song is kind of like, oh, well, people like that, like maybe I'll do some more things down that path or incorporate a few more of these sort of aesthetics into the newer material as well.
Yeah, like lean into it a bit more, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier, the God Will Be Cut has that kind of uh, it's kind of influenced by Kill Bill, and you also have like the samples from Kill Bill in there, and you've got a few other
Yeah,
samples. I think, well, you've got uh, Televised Suicide. That's obviously got something at the start, which is about
yeah,
like an actual story that I didn't even know about until like I kind of dug into the song and the sample. And I think you've got some samples as well in the song Perfect Dark. Like there's one at the start and the end from like two different films, I think.
yeah.
Um, how do those kind of, I think you kind of touched on it already, but how do those kind of samples come into the picture? Like how do you know or decide which samples to use in which songs? And I don't know, how is there any worry of like, I don't know, would you get like a strike on that? I
Like
don't
a
know.
copyright or something. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
we've been lucky. You know what I mean? We've never had anything cause us any problems like that because we've sampled things in since the start, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
like am hugely still inspired by MySpace era bands and samples and stuff was
All
massive,
the
in
rage.
songs
Yeah,
back
yeah.
then. Yeah, yeah, and it's like if you have fun with it, um, it's cool. But sometimes we'll like warp the audio a little bit or slow it down or put some distortion over it or something like that. So you can still recognize maybe what it's from if you're familiar with it, but it's
Yeah,
enough to it not be picked up by any AI or whatever. But yeah, I guess so. The Kill Bill one's sort of self-explanatory.
yeah.
Um, Emily chose the bitch you don't have a future, which is cool because it goes straight out of this song about essentially hunting someone down
Yeah.
to kill them, and then it just finishes with that, and then straight into invocation, which lyrically isn't related, but the way that it transitions with that sample works cool. And then we have the Bayonet scream from Berserk, from the actual anime version. That's the big roar that's at the end of Invocation of Doom.
Right.
Um, the sample at the start of Televised Suicide is the actual audio from Christine Chubbuck's like live suicide, apparently, according to the internet. So
Right. Yeah.
uh, that that story was obviously hugely inspirational for that song and had lots and lots of fun with the lyrics on that one. Tied in lyrics to like actual things uh, that she'd said and things out of that actual live news speech and all sorts of stuff like that. So that was really fun. And then I think it is just the ones in Perfect Dark, which is one's from The Woman in the Window with Amy
Right.
Adams. That's
Yeah.
the start one. And it's just a movie I was watching, and I thought that was like a pretty intense emotional crescendo in the movie, and it sounded so visceral when I watched it, and it tied in heavily to themes of the track before, and also the themes of dealing with mental health and suicide and things like that on Perfect Dark. So it tied in really well, and then the final sample is from a movie called The Night House, which if anyone hasn't seen The Night House, it came out in 2020. It's got Rebecca Hall in it. It's fantastic. It's a really cool horror movie, and it's just a it follows some normal tropes, but it just has a completely unique perspective on it, and it's just done so well. And yeah, I've watched it a few times, and I really love it. And that's an excerpt from a suicide note from um, the partner of Rebecca Hall in the movie. Um, and the note doesn't really make sense until the end of the movie.
Right.
Um, but then if you know the reference, it kind of ties in again yeah, to the Perfect Dark
Right.
uh, title and the consumption of or being consumed by the nothingness. in death, which is cool. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Like I think it's cool when bands do that, but so that there's a 18 Visions, they've got a few like film samples in their songs, and apparently like some fans will get like the DVDs of the film and then get them to sign it. So who knows, that might happen with
Oh,
you
true.
with some of yours, yeah. Some Kill Bill DVDs to sign and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? That'd be awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones. But yeah, we've used like samples from like Saw, Girl Interrupted. Um, yeah, they're the main ones that are standing out. Oh, Thelma and Louise. We got that
Right, okay.
at the start of Shoveled into a Bag, and it's such a hard sample, but people would not expect it to come from that movie.
Yeah.
And then of course, uh, ones from like Elden Ring and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's there's um there's a bunch in there, but it's I don't know, it's fun. I can't help myself, if I'm watching a movie or something. Yeah, if I hear something that I think would suit a song or a song name or something, I'm always like writing it down or getting a
Yeah.
timestamp or something for it
So do
for
you have
sure.
like a list, like a compilation on your phone that you can just refer to like at a later date?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes I'll either have it in a note or I text myself, so it
Right.
stays in like a text chain. This is my own number, and yeah, in there I've got tons of just ideas and merch ideas, song names, album names, timestamps and all that sort of stuff. And it's good to go back to. And some, you look back and you're like, what was I thinking with that one?
Yeah, yeah. And
Like
get rid of it, yeah.
that won't be any good. Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's cool. It's because I feel like I'm so like I have to do that. Otherwise, if it once it goes and I'm like, oh, what was that thing I was thinking of? And
Yeah, yeah.
then it's gone, and then it's like, oh, because I watch movies all the time, and it's like it could have been this, and then I've just lost it. Or sometimes it could be from something that I might not have even like enjoyed the film that much, but this emotion in this scene or this specific thing that happened or whatever was resonated with me enough that I thought it would work well in a song or title.
Yeah, yeah. And then like I say, you can just refer back to it and it saves you, like you say, time if you've written something down and then you know what it is and you don't have to like think, well, where the fuck did I hear that from? And like traipsing for all
Yeah,
these like films or shows that you think it might be and stuff. So yeah, yeah, that's a smart way of going about it.
yeah. I try to, I guess, just have ideas, keep ideas flowing all the time.
Yeah,
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 and inspiration and stuff like that.
yeah. 'Cause you never know when you'll need them. So yeah, it's good to have them in the bank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Well, you mentioned earlier, you're part of another band called Honest Crooks, and I think you're in a band called Vicious Instinct too. Um,
Yep.
what have you got currently going on with those two bands at the moment that people can know about?
So Honest Crooks recently put out a single called The Saboteur, and it's like a little bit of a slightly different direction, following on from our more sort of metal influenced um, style change over the last few years. But that band were kind of just hanging up the boots a little bit. We got to do a lot of cool stuff. We got to put out our LP. We got to do our 10-year shows and have Shinto Katana support us, which was like a big full circle moment for us. And we got to tour with some of our favorite bands. We toured with Zabalba and Harm's Way and Kublai Khan, Sanction, Justice for the Damned. Like we got to do so much cool stuff. And a couple of the guys have kids now, and we all live interstate from each other or in different cities and things like that. So it's just a bit tricky with us and other projects and families and careers and all that
Right.
sort of stuff. So we're not going to disband or anything, but I feel like let's sort of you know be stoked about what we got to achieve and keep it on like a high, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then if the right offer comes through in the future, we can get together and play a show, and it not be a reunion or,
Yeah.
bands break up and then 12 months later they do a reunion show and then it goes good and they're like, oh, we're back. And you're like, what? Like, why did you break up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think that stuff's kind of funny. So I didn't want to turn into one of those bands, but I also didn't want to have anything go sour and ruin the awesome memories that we had over the last decade. So yeah, that's sort of where that one's at. And Vicious Instinct is a band I do with some older friends of mine that, helped me out a lot when I was first coming up with Honest Crooks and stuff, and they wanted to start a band and just do a few shows a year. And yeah, I don't really contribute anything creatively to that band, but
Right.
it's just really fun to play live with those guys. And it's kind of like more sort of metallic hardcore
Yeah.
stuff, inspired by like Marauder and All Out War and bands like that. And I just hadn't really done a project that delved directly into that style. So I was like, yeah, cool. It'd be fun to play these songs. And already, we got to do some cool stuff. We played with Sing with Sugabog, and the boys played with Zabalba the other night while I was away on tour. And yeah, a bunch of local shows with friends and stuff. So yeah, it's cool to be able to have that project and do that with those guys as well, because just giving back to them because they put me on, 10 years ago when Honest Crooks was first like sort of getting into Newcastle and stuff.
Yeah. So I guess they all like scratch different itches, don't they? All the free projects there.
Yeah, yeah, they're all like in the same realm, but
Yeah.
all slightly doing their own thing. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, I'll always be wanting to be involved in this kind of type of music as long as I'm playing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, like we mentioned earlier, you've set up a label. And so is it just your music that you put out through that, or you thinking of like kind of expanding it to bring on other bands, or what's the kind of plan there?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So initially it was just to put out the Volatile record, and then
Right.
if having a name, I was like, I could, if someone wants to put something out through me, then I could do it if I enjoy, the idea of putting out other people's music. I'd never done that before. I'd always, helped people and gave advice if they asked questions or anything, but never actually, uh, released somebody else's music. So I was excited to have that as a prospect as such. And when I started it up, Shinto Katana had just announced their return to releasing the first music in 12 years or something. And
Right.
New Ethic Records was just a young guy in Melbourne who had started up a hardcore label. He was doing the vinyl for it. And so I just hit him up because they were friends of ours. And I was like, I've just started this label. Like, can I make you guys some CDs and do a shirt and sort of stuff? And they were like, yeah, it'd be awesome. And then so I put that together and I did enjoy it. I had fun with it. And that sort of rolled into the volatile stuff. And then we have a new release coming out on Wednesday for a band from Melbourne called Death Tax,
Right.
which is members of Fever Shack, is like a crossover sort of thrashy hardcore band from Melbourne. And then a couple of those guys do this heavy band called Death Tax, which is like slow, sort of sludgy, death metal influenced mosh stuff. And the guitarist who reached out to me when they were writing it and, just wanted some feedback on the songs. He hadn't really done a heavy band before and things like that. And when he sent it to me, I was like, dude, this is fucking sick. Like, I really like this. And I think that was before might have even been before I started the label when he sent me like the ideas for the songs he was doing.
Right.
And then when it came time, when it was like he was sending me mixes and different things like that, and I was like, dude, this is actually sounds crazy. Like if you be keen, like, can I put it out? So we did that. And it went well, and they've just finished their first Australian tour, uh, supporting Fever Shack, and the response on those shows was awesome because I went to a few of them. Um, and we did the Honest Crook single release as the Central Coast show, and yeah, and there's the singer Jordan. It's his first band. So seeing him up there, he's like a big guy, and he uses the mic stand, and he's just got
Right.
this hard, like mid-low, just aggressive death metal sort of vocal style, and it's just awesome, and I can tell that they're having heaps of fun with it. So that was cool to do. And actually, after this, I'm going to work on some stuff for a release that gets announced tomorrow, which is Aglo from Melbourne. It's like a sludgy death metal band with done by Aaron Osborne, who plays bass in Extortion.
Right.
And he was guitarist in I Exist and Mental Cavity, and he's done a bunch of different stuff over the years. Um, yeah, so I'm helping put that out. So we're going to run some vinyl merch and CD pre-orders for those, and that'll will get announced tomorrow. So this will be out, of course,
Yeah.
after that's already announced. So
Yeah.
I don't mind talking about that. And I'm also going to do a tape repress for a band from Singapore called End of All, and they're awesome, like mosh, brutal death metal, like really heavy, just scratches all the right itches. And they only put their demo out last year, and they're only like still a fairly small band, but it sounds insane. And I was like, more people need to hear this. So
Yeah.
I guess now that I'm sort of working on this stuff, like I'll just do a small run of tapes, or I might do a shirt or something like that. But I guess I'm at a point now where I feel like I can, reach out to some smaller bands that I have some faith in, and be like, if you're keen, let's put something together. And if I might have to, invest $500 to $1,000 or whatever, if I can break even on that or whatever, and show people like some new music, then that's a cool thing as well. But the goal would be, obviously to have it not lose money.
Yeah.
But if I can do that, if I can do that and showcase or help out newer bands and stuff too, that's a really cool thing. And then I would like to eventually get to a point where I could offer, a bigger band, like a deal per se, for them to be able to work or release through the label. So fingers crossed, it's all going great so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes, and yeah, trying to do touring with the bands, and then also touring crew work. Aiming to do that as much as possible, just freelance stuff,
Yeah.
moving into the future. So that should give me a lot more free time to focus on the label and put out some new music.
Yeah, you get to put out your own stuff, and you get to, another benefit of that is you get to, promote these bands that you're really passionate about that you want people to hear, so you can kind of help them out. And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been great. It's fun too, just to see what they want to do and what ideas they have, and how they want to release stuff. It's pretty interesting, being a sole proponent of that for different projects over the years. It's nice to work with the person in their band that has those ideas and stuff like that, and see how they want to do it. And Death Tax was really fun like that. Jordan, the vocalist, you put together these cool like reels of medieval, like Lord of the Rings spec stuff, and
Yeah.
he had a ton of fun with it, and it was actually really like wholesome and nice to work with someone that had a vision for what they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess like another question I had just off the back of that is, you've got these bands, like, they're active in different ways and different forms, and then the label as well, and you said you're doing some like freelance tour work and stuff. How do you kind of find the time to kind of balance all of that and know like and to prioritize things? How do you even do that?
It's a good question. So I've only really been doing this, or aiming to do this, since I finished up at my last job in the 29th of November.
Right.
And then I wanted to have December off so I could do the album rollout and make sure that all went well. And I had some other shows lined up in December, and just start fresh at the start of the year, at a new job, which I'd already lined up. And then Candace from Beast Mode, who's Volatile Ways manager, um, she books for Speed and tour manages Speed. And she asked me if I wanted to do just like a driving job on their regional tour. And I was like, yeah, it'd be awesome. I've known those guys for a while, and wanted to jump on a regional tour that had, 16 shows on it all across the country. I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And so I just
Yeah.
contacted the other place and said, I'm sorry, something's come up. I don't need the job anymore. And I was like, all right, let's
Wow.
try this and see what happens. So, being that I've looked after the sort of booking and touring and tour managing side of my own bands over the years. I've built, some relationships with other promoters and things like that too. So I just sent out
Yeah.
a couple of emails to them and was just like, if you got any work coming up, let me know. I'm trying to do this like full time. And then, yeah, I've had quite a few jobs come through off that already. So, it's, I guess finding the balance has just been, most of the tours and stuff that we're working on are planned quite far in advance. And then an interesting balance, like if you're not the actual tour manager or one of the bands on the tour, you're just crew, like a lot of crew stuff sort of comes through fairly last minute.
Right.
So, unless I had, um, big blackout periods that I knew about, like I would just send an email and say, I'm looking for work in May. Do you have any touring there? And then, it could be in April, I might find out that they have a, 2 week block of work that I could go and do. And then it's sorted. So it could be a little bit unpredictable, but if um, the goal would be to have the label kind of, you know, floating and not costing money and then getting my income from touring,
Right.
um, through work and the bands be self-sufficient as well, then hopefully I don't run out of money. That'd
Yeah.
be awesome.
That's the dream.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the short answer to the question is I'm still working it out, but it's going good so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of keep it that way and just, yeah, I'm sure things only get easier as like you kind of get more into it, I guess, because it's like say it's kind of early days, so you just kind of, I guess in a way you'll be finding your feet a little bit. So yeah, fingers crossed for you,
Yeah, for
dude.
sure. Yeah, thank you. And working with new people and um, like I said, when you're a band and you get hit up by a promoter to do a tour or whatever, like there's not always like a tour manager that you have a lot to deal with. And then, if you're just a support band, you're not heavily involved in all the inner workings of that stuff. So being on the crew side of it, you do see quite a lot of stuff that you don't normally think about or recognize, and
Right.
it gives you some additional knowledge and helps you with um, what you need to do with your own bands, but it also gives you like an appreciation for uh, what the other people do behind the scenes to
Yeah.
make sure the shows happen. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
cool. It's exciting. I've met a bunch of legends through it already, and people want to help the right people, if that makes sense. So people aren't afraid to give advice and show you the ropes. And I'm a sponge for that stuff. I always have been. You know what I mean? So I'll always ask questions and take it as much as I can. It's
Yeah.
invaluable to me.
That's the way to go, dude. Yeah, definitely. Well, just going back to Volatile Ways, what else is planned for
Yep.
you guys so far for 2025 that you can talk about?
Then we can talk about. I'd say we're probably just going to be off the back of the Body Snatcher shows by the time this comes out. So um, we're doing Melbourne, Newcastle, Brisbane with Body Snatcher from Florida. It's their first time in Australia. They're here with Lorna Shore and they're doing some side shows. So we've jumped on those three as the main supports. I'm really excited to meet those guys. They've supported us online for quite a while, and
Right.
being that it's their first time over here, it's going to be pretty cool to see how they go. And the shows are selling quite well, so I think there'll be a bunch of fun. And then as soon as that is finished up, we're looking at an Australian tour for the album release. We've got some dates locked in, so that hasn't been announced. By the time this comes out, it should be getting announced pretty soon after that. And it's our first Australian tour, so we're hitting some. Well, I shouldn't say it's our first full Australian tour, so we're hitting
Right.
some
Okay.
interstate places that we haven't been before, which I'm excited because we've linked up with Avocado Booking for like Europe and UK, and we haven't had any direct offers yet that's been suitable for us. So uh, I was like, we haven't even hit everywhere in our country yet. You know what I mean?
That's
It's like,
wild. Yeah.
yeah, it's like why are we thinking about going overseas? It's like why don't we try and go to Perth? Why don't we try and go to Tasmania? Like, yeah, it is expensive, but it's still cheaper than flying the other side of the world. So,
Yeah, definitely.
you
Yeah.
know, we've got a lot of people in those areas that we're friends with and have supported us over the years and stuff as well. So it's like, why don't we do that kind of thing? So that's pretty much what's in the bank that we can talk about for now. The vinyl orders should be in mid to late March. So, in most vinyl, unfortunately, still has delays, but um, due to an extended Christmas closure,
Right.
per se. Yeah, there's about should be about 5 weeks until we have the finals in hand for that. So that's exciting, and just getting all the pre-orders and everything packaged up and out. Doing that as a one man thing is always been enjoyable, but now that it's got to the point where I'm like, oh wait a minute, I've got to pack 200 orders.
Yeah, it's gonna take a few hours. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it's going to take a while, but I don't work full time anymore, so
Yeah.
I can either pay myself some money to do it, or I'll have a lot more spare time to do it as well. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. And yeah, we're trying to, of course, do some international touring in the future, and even Southeast Asia is coming to mind. There's some really
Right.
cool bands going off over there at the moment. We've heard great things. Lots of Australian bands have done Southeast Asia before, because it's not too far, but it's still um, enough of a distance to have like a completely new scene, and they really like hard and heavy music over there. So we could maybe aim for something like that if we don't get the right offer to go to Europe or UK. For the end of the year, we can't just tour Australia again. So
Yeah.
we need to start thinking about what can we do to help grow the band, and what's within uh, our sort of budget and reach to be viable for the band. So it's exciting to think about, honestly. So I've never been
Yeah.
overseas before. So
Well, at all.
no, never.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. So being that, the first time I'll be going overseas will be because the music is pretty surreal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who knows? This time next year, you might have checked that off the bucket list.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, Louis, thank you very much for coming on and having a chat with me. Really appreciate it, and really excited to hear where this is all going, like the label and the band and everything. So, yeah. Before I let you go, any final words? Anything you want to say or plug? Floor's yours.
I'll show a quick uh, plug of the CD again. So let's see the internal layout. And yeah, so of course, same artwork as the vinyls. I just have the internals on the inner sleeve. So all of that stuff's being packaged and posted out now. We've got all the stuff in hand. So if anyone wants to check it out or support the label, it's Bereave in God Records, and the tag is Only Big Records, and it's onlybigrecords.com. So all that stuff's in hand now and ready to ship. And yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys the record, and thanks everybody that said something nice about it or checked it out or listened to it. It's been really, really cool and surreal. Um, and thank you to Candice at Beast Mode. Shout out to SCT, Steel City Terror, like all our Newcastle friends, and bands like Scorn, Splinter, Feel the Pain, Cutthroat. They're all really cool newy bands that are doing well at the moment, and it's exciting. I think 2025 is the year of Newcastle.
We'll see, dude.
Awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Zach. I appreciate it, man. It's
Yeah, of
been
course,
great.
dude, of course. Yeah, well, hopefully a tour in the UK is not too far in the future. It'd be really cool to actually catch you guys live. The record's killer, so yeah, you should be proud of it. Well done.
Awesome. Thanks so
Yeah,
much, man.
no worries, dude. Yeah, I'll let you go. And yeah, hopefully speak soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Cheers,
Catch
man.
you later, dude. And that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in to It's Not a Phase. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow the podcast on social media, and maybe even join the Patreon or grab some merch from the store. You can find everything that you need at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again. Hopefully catch you on the next one. And remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.